right, so we got some people on here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So, Photoshop 101, right? A lot of people, I mean, there's so many ways to approach Photoshop. It's kind of like, I always have a hard time kind of trying to figure out where to start. But for today's session, I decided to kind of go over the major areas that I always find myself, getting into or approaching every time I start a new design. Just to give a little backdrop on Photoshop. Photoshop was originally created for photos, and it was simply made to just touch up photos. There's some other software out there now. Even Apple has their own software where you can, get rid of red eye on photos. Change the color, do a little color correction. If you have two individuals who are in different ends of the color spectrum. And what I mean by that, you have someone who's a lot darker in skin pigment as opposed to someone who's a lot lighter. You have different softwares that help do a little correction, make the lighting match. You have a lot of different software that they've come up with that does with Photoshop. And at the very basics, what Photoshop was created to do. However, for years, I mean, even when I started I learned it probably back in 2001 is when I got my first exposure to Photoshop. And with Photoshop, it began to get used a lot more for not only just touching up photos, but you see nowadays people use it for all their social media graphics. You use it for logos. You use it. You can even use it to edit PDFs. I mean, it has so many use cases for it. And my goal is to kind of share, some of the success I have with using it, as well as, giving you tips and different things like that. So over a course of weeks, I'll be going over the basics on how to get in there and get started. But also, I have a goal to actually start a course where I can literally take you through and take you from basically being a novice or a beginner to an expert in Photoshop. You'll be able to do your own graphics and touch up your own brand, if you will. That's something that I'm really I feel really strong about. I feel that everyone needs to be thinking about their brand, when you're on social media, when everything from your resume to your Facebook page to your Twitter page, everything should sound the same and look the same and look like it comes from the same person. So, like I said, over the next couple of weeks, you look out for emails and different messages from me, just kind of touching on those kind of concepts, the importance of branding and, how to use these tools to make sure that you have a brand that makes you stand out. That way you don't look cheap. You don't look like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't look irrelevant, is what I like to call it. A lot of times when your graphics are poor, your graphics or they look really cookie cutter, you can come off as being unauthentic. So my goal is to eradicate that. All right. So anyway, that's my little opener. I'm just gonna jump in and kind of take you through some of the basics of Photoshop. So as you can see, I already have a document open, and I put this together literally in 2 seconds just to to communicate a message to you all. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna exit out of this, and I'm gonna start from scratch. My goal, once again, is to kind of take you through maybe about 8 major areas of Photoshop that you'll find yourself constantly going back to. And I don't know about you, but when I first opened Photoshop, it looks, for the most part, I started with, I think it was Photoshop 7 at the time. I can't remember, but when I started, it looks relatively the same from when I first started to now. So, what I was about to say is when you initially look at Photoshop, it could come off as, it could be very intimidating because you got all these buttons here and you got all this stuff that you're just supposed to know what it means and how it works for you, right? Well, it actually isn't as intimidating as you would expect. I mean, once you kind of figure out what area means what, it's a lot easier for you to jump in there and navigate. So my goal is, my goal today with this free webinar is to simply get rid of that intimidation that Photoshop may initially cost when you log onto it. So now, if you don't have Photoshop, I mentioned it on my sign up page. If you don't have Photoshop, you can download a free tutorial, which lasts about 30 days. And you can, I think I provided a link. If not, I could provide the link at the end of this training session. I'm not gonna worry about that right now. But for now, if you don't have it, you can just follow along with me as I go through the different areas. Take notes, of course. And, you can always message me at Cleet. Excuse me. You can always message me at Cleet at cleetthegeek.com, if that makes sense. I know I'm saying at a couple of times, but Cleet at cleetthegeek.com. CLEET, thegeek.com. All right. Now, you can email me at that email address if you, if you want to go ahead and take advantage of that trial, or you could just type in Photoshop into Google and kind of find your way into getting the trial. But you can also, as an individual, you can pay $10 a month and get the latest Photoshop, and you won't have to worry about spending thousands of dollars like you used to have to before they came out with this Creative Cloud version of Photoshop. So that's that. Now, for those of you who have Photoshop right now, let's go ahead and just follow along with me, and don't try to, if you find out I'm going too fast or if you can't follow along quick enough, then simply just take notes, and like I said, get in contact with me afterwards. This is really for you all. I just want to make sure that I'm providing information for you that can be helpful. And if I'm not able to get that information to you within the time frame of the training session, then definitely you always feel free to tweet, send me a direct message on Twitter, Facebook message me, text me, email me. I'm open to any of those avenues so that I can help you out with your branding needs. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna start with file. Whether you're on PC or Mac, you're always going to have your little top header where you got your file, edit, image, layer, and so on and so forth. So you want to get on here and immediately with Photoshop, and you're gonna start off in one of these two areas here. So I'm going to show you guys now. Eventually, in future training sessions, I'll get into, opening up previous files and different things like that. Or I might have some time to touch on it, but right now I'm just going to take you through the basics of starting a new file. So you come to new, and most of the time when you first get Photoshop, it's going to start off with your default Photoshop, the Photoshop size. Okay. As you can see here, you got your width, you got your height. And you can have it measured in inches. A lot of times now, and some of you may already be familiar with this. When you're dealing with web graphics, when you're dealing with graphics for all your social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and etc., they measure the size of the images in pixels. And like I said, if you've had any experience with anything online, any kind of graphic, uploading your pictures to Facebook or Twitter, uploading any kind of graphic, you're familiar with pixels. So I'm not going to get into the conversions of how pixels convert to inches, but what I will say is inches, inches is here. It gives you that ability because Photoshop is also really good for print graphics. So I initially started Photoshop doing print graphics before I even touched anything web. and you're able to put it in inches. So let's say if you needed to create a regular 8x11 page, you know, you could come over here and put it in inches, and you could design on that page. And when you go to print it out, you know that it's going to fill up the standard size of a piece of paper. Now, for the sake of example, we're gonna be focusing on web graphics. So I'm going to switch over to pixels, and I'll show you how to set up all of your settings for pixels. But I tell you what, I just thought of something. Before I do that, since I was on that little note on inches, let me just show you the difference on the setup, and make sure you take notes for this section here. So let's say if I wanted to do a standard page, right? I'm going to go 8 by 8.5 and with 11 height, right? That's your standard size page. Now, resolution, you notice I got already loaded here at 300. That is kind of the standard print resolution that you want to go with. And you want to make a note of that because it's relatively smaller for web graphics. And resolution is basically, you know, if you've, once again, if you've been online and you've seen good graphics as opposed to bad graphics, you'll notice that a lot of bad graphics are pixelated. And what I mean by pixelated, they're blurry. And what you may find is someone may have had a low resolution like 72, which is your standard web resolution, but they'll take that resolution and go and try to print it. So now you have inches here, right? You got a resolution of 72, and you're going to go to your standard printer and try to print something that has a 72 resolution. That's going to cause that graphic or whatever that image is, it's going to cause it to be pixelated. So to avoid that, just make a note to yourself. Anytime I'm dealing with print, most of the time I'm just going to deal in inches, and I'm going to have a resolution of 300. The size is going to vary. You know, I'll get into large size Photoshop graphics in future trainings, but you want to stay within the regular page size, you know, when it comes to Photoshop, so that when you're working on the actual graphic, you're not slowing down your computer, because the larger you make the image and the larger the resolution is, the more it slows down your computer. You want to avoid that. So you want to stay within the standard paper sizes. You know, you got your legal size, which is a little larger than this. You got your standard size, which is 8.5 by 11, and so on and so forth as you get smaller and smaller. 4 by 6 is your standard, you know, flyer or postcard, you know. So anyway, if you have more questions about those different sizes, definitely send me a message and I'll get with you on that. Now, moving on. Another thing you want to pay attention to is the color settings. Now, RGB is the standard settings for web, okay? CMYK is the standard settings for print. So now, just sticking on, you know, sticking amongst the lines of showing you guys how to set up for print, these are the settings that you want. You want to make sure that you got your size, your width, and your height correct with, you know, with that being measured in inches. You want to make sure your resolution is 300, and you want to make sure your color mode is on CMYK. Every time you open up a document to do something print, you want to make sure you have these to avoid colors being different. You know, because the biggest thing is the color modes, they're set up to be presented in the best way possible on the different platforms. So if you're on a computer, RGB is already, without being so technical, it's already designed to work on a computer. And the same thing with the CMYK. A lot of times if you look at your printer, it has those, you'll see a CMYK represented on your actual printer, because that's the mode and the color profiles and all that stuff that works for printers. Okay, so like I said, I'm trying to describe things and be as thorough as possible without being too technical. Okay, so anyway, that's your settings for printing. Right now, like I said, we're going to focus on web graphics. So I want to show you guys with this tutorial, I want to show you the standard size that kind of works for all social media platforms right now. So I'm going to switch over to pixels. I'm going to make this 800 by 800. This is a nice standard size because what it's going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to create, that's a great size for Instagram, first of all. Second of all, it works great on Facebook and it works great on Twitter. And then, you know, I don't know if you guys mess with LinkedIn or any of the other platforms, but this is kind of like your catch-all size that works for social media. Now, resolution, as I mentioned earlier, 72 is the standard. Now, you might say, you know what, I want to make sure that my graphics are crispy and they're clear and they have a lot of clarity to them. So why don't I just put it up to 100 or make it a little larger? Well, the standard for what browsers put out is 72. They're not going to go any higher than 72. So even if you were to make your resolution more than 72, it would never put out or it'll never display on your browser any higher than 72. So now what you end up doing is you make your overall file size, which you can see here, the image size, you end up making your image size a lot larger than you need to, because you're not going to get any more resolution out of it. Okay. And then also you want to make sure that you're you're set on RGB color. All right. So I did a big old large intro on, or a long intro rather, on how to set up or how to start your file with Photoshop. So I got the standard size up, and we're going to move on to the next thing that I wanted to focus on. Do me a favor, if for whatever reason you didn't see any of that, because I just looked on the screen here and I noticed that I didn't see the pop-up window. So if I just went through that 10 to 15 minutes of description and you didn't see anything, let me know about that. And once again, I'll get with you later on I'll show it to you so that you can see what I was talking about. But hopefully you heard me and you're able to take some notes. All right, so to move on, next area we're going to tackle is the toolbox. So once again, if you just got Photoshop, it might start this way, right? So if you click this little arrow in the corner here, this allow you to kind of make, kind of put them on two rows. And this is the standard way that Photoshop started. So, me as a lawyerist, as one of the man, look, me as someone who's just been using Photoshop for so many years, I just want to keep it simple. I don't like to try to, keep changing with all of their new updates. I try to stick to what I know, and you'll find, with Photoshop, once you learn these basics, there'll be some areas that you'll learn that you just kind of know is your go-to move or your go-to area for Photoshop, and you're going to stick to that. I want you guys, I encourage you to approach it that way. That way you build confidence, and once you have confidence on a few things that you do in Photoshop, you have that confidence that'll kind of roll over into the different areas that you can learn. All right. So getting back to it. So you want to understand this toolbar. You see it's broken down into sections. I have a link here that I can send to everyone after this is over. I also put it in the chat. But this is a quick little tutorial I found that just kind of breaks down what those sections are, because Photoshop doesn't label them for you. But just to kind of run through them really quickly, these are your selection and move tools. So this is one of the standard tools, the move tool. It gives you the arrow and it allows you to move text, logos, objects, anything that you have on your canvas. This is considered your canvas. This mimics a page or a graphic, a web graphic, or whatever have you. Some of these other, this is your select tool. You'll find when you're editing photos and you're touching up photos and things like that, this is a very helpful tool. This eyedrop tool is pretty cool because it allows you to select colors on the screen, and we'll get into that a little later. But if you have a color on the screen, you don't know exactly the hex color for it, you simply use the eyedrop tool to select that color and then to put it over here in your color palette here. But let me not get so descriptive with the toolbox here. What I want you to focus on today is your move tool, your text tool, okay? And then if there's any other tools, we'll jump back over there, okay? So for the most part, you're gonna be, you know, anytime you have one of these selected, you're going to see it change according to whatever that particular tool is. And if you can notice, if you just long press on each of the tools, some of the ones that have a little white box in the corner, they have more functions for it. We won't get into those uses, the use for those other functions today unless we have to. All right. But anyway, what I want to do is I want to go over, you know, the basics of getting a image, sizing it correctly, and putting text over it, okay? Now, bear with me because I want to go grab an image that I can use as a background. And I wanted to share with you all a little methodology or a trick I use to grab images from Google. Because a lot of times, one of the biggest issues with pixelation, with pixelation is the fact that when we go and grab images, let me just say, what could I do? Let me just say beach or something. And I'm pretty sure you guys can't see my browser right now, so just bear with me. What I'm going to actually do, let me see if I can share this with you guys. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if this will allow me to share this. All right. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this. Yeah, well, it's shown on the screen, so you should be able to. So now, you know, one thing I wanted to kind of, you know, add to my presentation for today is a nice methodology. Some of you might already know this, but I wanted to share it anyway. So when you go on to look for image, you know, you go to Google, you type, let's say you're looking for beach, you go and you click on images, right? And now you have all of these images that you can choose from. If you notice, when you hover your mouse over them, you're going to see that the size is highlighted right there for you. Now, in this case, as I mentioned earlier, everything on the web is measured in pixels, you know, the pixels on your screen, right? So a nice rule of thumb, or something I like to do, and it's not foolproof. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it works about 90% of the time. When you're over here looking for images, you see this image here, the second image. This is 2000 by 1339. That's 2000 pixels by 1339 pixels, right? Okay, now if you notice, the graphic that we're working on Photoshop, the one that I had you all open up, is 800 by 800. A good rule of thumb for me is, okay, if I'm going to be using a graphic image as a background image and I want it to be large, I want it to have no pixelation, I want it to be clear, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make sure that image is at least 1,000 pixels. For the most part, all of your graphics on your social media platforms, especially this square that I just showed you guys, that's 800 by 800, they're going to be under 1,000. So now if your image is over 1,000, that's going to, you know, give you the confidence that, you know what, my image won't be pixelated. It's going to be large enough where I can blow it up, or I can make it smaller, or I have some wiggle room with that image, so that, you know, as I lay it as my background, or if it's my main image or whatever it is, it gives me confidence that it's not pixelated. And of course you can look at it and tell if it's blurry or not. And once again, when I say pixelation, I'm referring to it being blurry. Okay. Now, where do I want to go with this? So, a big thing to just make a note of is you want to make sure your images are large. You know, your background images, things that you want to be really clear. You want to make sure it's a pretty big size. Now, the way that I ensure that I'm finding images, or or a better way to put it, to filter out all of the images that I don't want, I go to search tools. So I click on images and I go to search tools, size. And then, you know, you can choose large. When I choose large, it's going to give me all of the ones that are above 1,000. Okay. And then you can kind of go and you can find a nice image. Okay. Right click. And as you can see, when you zoom in on it, it's really punched in. So it has a lot of clarity to it. When you bring in the image, it's going to look really crispy and really high quality. They call these type of images high res. Okay. So I had a client that asked me actually about it earlier today about how to find high res. So if that client was able to log into this training, definitely want to make sure you take notes on this. This is a very effective tool that Google has, where it just allows you to search for the best graphics, the best images. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to click on here, and I like to zoom in on it and make sure it's the biggest size. And then I'll just right click, save image as. Give me a little second here. I'm assuming it's going a little slow only because I'm doing this this presentation here. You know, I know y'all probably got the iMac 5K. You know, y'all balling out, but you know, I'm doing something over here with my computer. All right. So here we go. Boom. Downloaded it. Got it. Beach 5 JPEG. Right. I did want to talk about JPEG and PNG. Okay. Let me just move that in here. Okay. So before I, you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll hopefully before we run out of time today, I can get into JPEG and PSD, which is a Photoshop file, and PNG and the different use cases for those different file formats. So hopefully I can revisit that discussion with you all today. If not, if you have questions about it, definitely message me. Okay. But as you can see, there's so many things for me to just deal with in one sitting that it's no way possible to deal with, you know, to address all of those things. So, you know, the confidence that you do have though is once I do start a training session, a training class, which I'm probably going to do for about 5 weeks, you'll have ample time to learn all of the ins and outs and the whys and the why nots and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So anyway, I got that image, right? So I'm going to switch back over to Photoshop, guys. So give me a second here. Stop that. Let's get back on Photoshop. All right. So we're back on Photoshop. Now I just saved the image to my computer. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Open. Remember when I started, I said most of the time you're going to be going to New and to Open, right? So as you can see, you're kind of into my Cleet the Geek folder. Let's get out of there. Get you out of my business. Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and grab this beach photo that I just grabbed. And we're going to open. So now, as you can see, there's tabs in Photoshop. So I have the image that I just opened for you guys, the one that we just set up, and then I have the one that I just saved from the internet. Now, without getting too technical, basically when you have, just like in this case, you notice it defaults as a background layer. Here is your layers section. Hopefully you guys, when you open your Photoshop, you have your layers already open on the right side. If they're not open, you can come over to Window and scroll down and you should see the word layers. It should be checked. If it's already open, it's checked. If it's not open, then just go ahead and check it and you'll see it populate on the right side. But anyway, over here in layers, anytime you start off, your base layer is always going to be your background layer and it's going to come locked. All right. So what you want to do is just double click on it and you want to unlock it essentially. All right. This gives you the ability to, if you just wanted to take that one layer and move it into another document, like we're about to do right now, then you want to make sure that you turn it into, you get rid of that lock so that so that Photoshop will allow you to move it to another document. All right. So in this case, here's the graphic, the image that I just grabbed from the internet. It's defaulted to background with a lock on it. So I'm going to double click, turn it to a layer, and now, you know, to turn it to a standard layer. And now I'm able to move it and manipulate it like I want to. Now, there's some easier ways to move an image from one document to another. I'm going to show you the most basic way, which is simply making sure you're selected. You have your move tool selected, and you're going to simply take that image. And as you can see, those boxes, the white and the gray boxes, and you know, they represent transparency, basically saying there's nothing on the canvas at this point, right? And just to kind of go back to the discussion we we're having about pixels, each box represents a pixel. So your computer, if you could imagine your computer, your whole screen is made up of these white and gray boxes. Those are pixels, okay? All right, anyway, so I'm grabbing this image, I'm moving it up, I'm gonna carry it up to the tab of the document that I wanna move it on, and I still have my mouse selected. Now I haven't let go. And I'm gonna come back down to the area where I want it to be and let it go. All right, so we're gonna do that again. And if you wanna know how I made that disappear, I just simply hit Control-Z for PC, and on Mac it's Command-Z. That's just to undo, okay? That's to undo one move. Now, if you wanna undo several moves, we'll talk about that at a later date. I don't wanna get into all of that, but just to undo one move, is Control-Z or Command-Z. All right. Now, so once again, I'm going to do this move. I'm going to select the image. I'm going to drag it to the actual tab of the layer, and you know, there'll be, as you can see, they have a title on. You know, this one is untitled because this is a new one we opened, but this one is named Beach. This one is untitled. So I'm moving it to there, and I'm just going to drop it in there. All right. Now, as you can see, it's in here, but it's kind of big. I don't really know what, you know, I know I can move it, but I mean, is this the whole image? I can't really tell. Well, what you want to do, you want to come over here to your magnifying glass, okay? And every time, just a note, every time you click on the tool, notice this section on the top here. All right, look what my mouse is. There's a section here. It's very similar to the little tool strip that you see on Microsoft Office. You know, the Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all of those softwares. They have like all of their tools at the top here. Photoshop has that similar thing here. But the thing about Photoshop is every time you click on a tool, it's going to change based on whatever tool you choose for the toolbox. It's going to give you the additional options for that tool. All right. So now going back to the magnifying glass, when I click on the magnifying glass, I have the options here. I could zoom. You know, I can basically take some shortcuts by saying fit to screen. I could full screen. I can go. You know, I don't really deal with this 100% scrub zoom thingy. But here to manually determine if you want to zoom in and zoom out, you just hit the minus to zoom out, and of course plus to zoom in. So I'm going to hit that a couple of times, right? Now, I still, you know, if you paid attention to the graphic that you moved over, you would notice that there's still more to this graphic. I don't see it in this black area. Like, where is it, right? Well, you're going to come back to the move tool, and as you click on the move tool, you'll see a line here. You'll say, whoa, look at this. There's more to this thing. So when I move this, it's really stretched out, right? It's really a lot larger than the actual canvas is, the 800 by 800 pixel canvas, right? So a nice little quick way to kind of zoom out and see the full size of the image is to go to View and see, and forgive me, it's changed a little bit on Photoshop CC. It used to be a function that said fit artboard on screen. Well, not fit artboard. There was another function. Don't worry about what the name of it was because I can't think of it now. But hit print no, not print screen. Hold on a second. Fit screen. So it is fit screen. Forgive me, all right? Not perfect. I apologize, all right? Jeez. All right. All right, so it is fit screen. I was thinking of something else. But yeah, for fit screen, it's going to allow you to come all the way out to where the end of the bounding box is. Now, this box is a function of the move tool, right? If you look up here in your additional options, you can make that disappear, but now you won't know where the end of that image ends. So a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, you want to leave this selected or unselected. For the case of for the purpose of wanting to make this image smaller, I'm going to leave it selected. And now, here's a big deal. This is a big deal with people in Photoshop. If you come over here, you grab your mouse. Most people just want to come and grab your mouse and move it, right? But look what happens. Look at that box. It's kind of going all over the place. What happens is this is kind of like Photoshop sin, if you will. It's, you know, most of the time you want to keep things proportional. You want to keep things looking nice. You want to keep things branded well. If you grab this and move this way, look what happens to this. You know, so a lot of times, you know, if you're not paying attention, if you don't move the box the right way, you're going to get things stretched the wrong way and it looks distorted and it doesn't look good. Okay. Now, some of you may be familiar with other software that already has the ability to allow you to move things proportionately. A lot of them got that from Photoshop. Photoshop's been doing this for years. So if you are familiar with that, then you already know where I'm going with this. So let's go ahead and go one move back. We're going to do Command Z or Control Z. I'll see that I didn't do it. Hopefully you guys didn't move it too much. But anyway, if it's not letting you move, you simply hit Return or Enter to reset the box. And you're going to come to Edit at the top and you're going to step backwards. And it's going to take you back. So hopefully I was able to get you back if you're following along. But anyway, what you want to do to move this proportionately is you want to grab the corner. You want to hold down Shift first. Whether you're on PC or Mac, just hold down Shift and you grab the corner and you notice it's going to move proportionately. Okay? So what I like to do, I just like to grab my image, bring it into the edge of the canvas, and then I try to position it and center it as much as possible. Okay, so there you go. You just downloaded the image from Google and you brought it into Photoshop and you position it the right way using the Move tool, and you know, using your zoom in and zoom out tool to make sure that you see the entire image, the box around the image, so that you can manipulate it. One way to always reset, remember, it's still in the move state right now. So when you want to lock that in, just hit Return, and now it's locked in. Okay. Another way to lock it in is just to click on another tool, and it'll lock it in as well. So now let's so we put an image on there. Let's see. It looked like we got started about 2:20. So if you have time to hang out, we're gonna probably roll until about 3:20. So that gives me some time to go through a few more features, and then also make sure I can talk a little bit about, you know, JPEG and PNG and the use cases for those. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to email me. Let me do this real quick so that I don't have to keep spelling it out for you guys. Create a new graphic real quick. And I'm going to leave the email address if you have any questions for me. And let me get a font that's a lot simpler. And we're about to go over fonts next. So I know I'm moving quickly, but don't worry about that. You'll have a chance to learn how to do this stuff here. Take the text out, all right? It's a real minimal design. Shout out to my boy Jay. But yeah, there you go. If you have any questions about anything we're going over, once again, I know this first one is choppy. Bear with me, because I just wanted to get this out here. I'm definitely gonna do a lot more of these free trainings where I can, kind of answer questions to help you guys get along on Photoshop. But if you have any questions after this training session, definitely don't hesitate to email me there. If you're interested in that class I'm telling you guys about, once again, I'm gonna start it within another couple of weeks, a week or so. It's going to be a 5-week class where I'll go over in detail everything you need to do to get up and running in Photoshop. And here's the thing. If you learn Photoshop, I mean, not only will you be able to do your own branding, your own graphics, but that could be another revenue stream for you. If, in your free time, you can end up helping others with graphics and them paying you for it. And that's something that I do along with I do that for my employer. And I also do it freelance as well. So it can be very lucrative and very rewarding. If you wanted to take it up and you begin to seriously take on creating graphics for people. But anyway, that's my little side commercial for that. Now, as you can see, let's get back to this graphic. We're zoomed out right now, right? Let's go ahead and zoom back in so we can see a little bit better. And like I told you guys, when you use an image that's larger than your canvas, when you use an image that's larger than 1,000 pixels, that's going to give you the confidence that it's going to be nice and crispy. It's going to be high quality, high res. That's what you want, because high res graphics get attention. It catches others' eyes. There's so many things that I'll be able to teach you guys in the future on how to put different filters. You know how you got Instagram, it has their famous filters that you can add to your photos. Well, Photoshop has that ability too, and I'll be going over that in my training class that I start soon. Now, to get back to this tutorial here, let's go ahead and click on the text tool. Now, if you were just watching me, I just created a quick graphic just to show you guys my email address if you had any questions, right? Now, the text tool is basically, I like to say, it's your gateway. I'm not going to use drug, but it's your gateway to confidence in Photoshop. A lot of times when I first started in Photoshop, I would literally just come over, get a canvas, and I would literally just put different fonts together. And I was like, oh, that looks cool. That looks cool. This looks fresh. That looks fresh. And, I kind of started there. Then I started moving images in there, and I kept playing with just text and images. To be frank with you, to be honest, a lot of designers are simply, they're defaulting to that level of design because minimal, I mentioned that earlier, minimal design is kind of a fad. It's a new thing because so many people are using apps to create graphics for Instagram and Photoshop, and for FaceTime. And sorry guys, hold on a second. Got a shorty here, a kid. So let me check him really quick. Hello, sorry about that. Sorry about that. My little Aiden just woke up, so he was just making his entrance. He wanted to get his little cameo in, of course, but his mom is coming to get him, so he won't be a distraction to the remainder of our training session. Okay, so let me see where I was at. I'm trying to remember where my train of thought was. I was talking about, minimal design. Yes. So to be honest with you, the format of having really nice quality pictures and really nice fonts is kind of a new fad, and that's something that you guys can really start off focusing on and gain a lot of confidence. So if any of you have ever did any training with me, I normally start here and allow you to get your feet wet with this form of graphics first, and then we'll get into different things like cutting people out and putting them on different backgrounds and making doing stuff like making this mountain disappear and stuff like that. That's kind of like that's Photoshop steroids training, right? But minimal design is kind of a gateway into really becoming a graphic designer. And all it really, the elements that are involved in that is just a nice image, right? A nice font, and making sure that they're positioned well. And then, like I say, you kind of go from there. You start to add filters and things like that. But anyway, let me not keep babbling. Now, you go to when you click on your this tool here. Now, a big thing to note is these are your two color palettes. I'm not going to get into why this one is over this one and different things like that. All you need to really know right now is the top one is whatever that's on is going to be the color that you can actually use. So now that I have my type tool selected, I have my additional options here, which gives me my fonts. It gives me the different sizes, whether it be bold, italicize, etc., etc. This is my font size. This here, you don't really need to work with this too much. I like to keep it sharp or crispy, but for the most part, the default is pretty good. This is similar. This is your setting for your paragraph. If you're typing more than just one sentence, it's your alignment settings. This box here is your additional. It's kind of it extends these options here, gives you a little bit more, like making all of the making it all caps. Photoshop has a italicize function to it. So some fonts you may download don't have any, they don't have an option for italicizing it, but Photoshop allows you to manipulate that and still italicize it. Same thing with boldness. Some of them don't have boldness, but Photoshop allows you to add it to them. Okay. Now, what I'm gonna do, one font that's really killing the game right now is Babus. So I'm gonna just I'm gonna grab this font and we're gonna be working with that for this graphic. Now, another thing I'll show you guys. A lot of you may have already, if you try to play with graphics at all, a lot of you may have went to you may have downloaded an app like PicLab or I don't know the name of them. They come out with apps every 5 minutes nowadays. So you might have found one of these apps that has the ability to allow you to create nice graphics with a nice background and a nice font. A lot of these fonts, you kind of like, where do I get these fonts at? I mean, it's on my phone, but how can I get those into Photoshop? One place that I found that has a lot of the popular, and they have a lot of the most up-to-date fonts is Lost Type, I believe. Let me see. I'm going to put it in the chat thing in a second here. Let me just pull it up on a browser, make sure I have that address right. I believe it's Lost Type. Let me see. And I'm getting emails here. I probably should have my email thing open here. Lost Type. There we go. I'm going to put that in the chat thing here. Let me see. Bear me a second. I got a couple of emails here. I'm assuming the chat thing may not be working. So let me see what people are talking about here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Hey, here you good information. The screen has been showing the same thing for the past couple of minutes. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks for the feedback, Kingly Misfit. All right, the font is Babus. I'm actually gonna reply to this guy here. Let me move that over to the side. All right, so the font, you can see it here is Babus regular. You can download it a lot of times too. Another thing you can do is when you come across a nice font, you just simply do a Google search for it. You'll find that it might be on one of those free websites. So Lost Font is one, and then another good website, which is kind of like standard, you know, it's one of the more popular ones, is thefont.com. So I just added that to the text, to the chat as well, the group chat as well. So, you know, let me know if you got those links. If you don't, just send me an email, and I'll get those to you after the session. But anyway, so I'm gonna grab Babyliss, and I'm gonna use, remember I told you guys about the eyedrop tool? I'm gonna pull one of these nice colors out of here so that, you see that color was out of default, it was on black. And just a little trick, if you wanna go back to the default colors, you can always click these little grade boxes here. It's gonna always default to the standard black and white color. Now, I can grab the eyedrop tool, and like I said, I could pull one of these dark colors out of here so that, you know, the font that I use, it kind of, so the font that I go with, you know, it flows with the design, right? And then now I'm gonna go back to the text tool, and I can click on anywhere on the canvas, and then I can start typing. So I'm just gonna put good life. Right? Now, as you can see, if I go back to my options, this A here on the side here, if it's not there, once again, anytime you want something to appear on the right side, you want to go to Window, and you want to look for, you know, the title of it, and make sure it's checked, and it'll once you check it, it'll actually show up on the side there. This A represents character, so as you can see, it's already checked, and it's right there. All right. Now, when I look at this font, I thought I was on Babyliss, but I'm not. So let me go to Babyliss regular. Boom. Now, a little too bold for me, but I'm gonna roll with it. I'm gonna roll with it for the example. So we got Babyliss, and now, as you can see, I don't have any box around it, but I'm on my move tool, right? So remember that box thing I was telling you about, show transform controls. So you want to make sure you're selecting that. And now it's going to allow you to make this larger. You know, you can stretch it. You can do all kind of stuff, right? But remember what I told you. Anytime you move in something, the rule is you want to make sure you're holding down shift so that it grows or it expands or scales rather proportionately. Okay. That's one way to make your font bigger. Don't apply. It's one way to make your font bigger. You can also come here and mess around with the font size. So it just depends. No way is better than the other. With Photoshop, you're going to find that you can always, there's always several ways to do something. Okay. So anyway, I got this, right? I got my font. I can move it anywhere on the canvas. I can hold down shift, and I can scale it up, make it larger or smaller. Okay. Now, here's some other functions. So I kind of didn't really get into layers yet, and I want to make sure I touch on that. I'm gonna, I'll tell you what, guys, what's what I'm gonna do. I want to make sure I'll let you guys know what we're gonna cover for the rest of the time, because like I said, I know we started a little late, and I don't want to have you guys going all day. So with the time I have left, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna talk a little bit about layers. I'm gonna finish talking about type. I'm going to talk about layer styles. And what I mean by that, different effects to like add a shadow, add a stroke, and different things like that. Once I finish those areas, what I'm basically going to do, I'm gonna show you how to save it. And I'll talk about the difference between JPEG and PNG. All right. So let's go back to the text. So anyway, I've just shown you how to type in your text, how to resize and make it larger, how to move it around. Once you have the move tool, remember you gotta, for everything that you want to do, there's a tool that is associated with it. Okay. So just make sure you're on the right tools to accomplish the different things that you want to do. Now, from a designer standpoint, I've been doing this so long where I kind of know, you notice I keep moving this down to this corner here because I kind of got an idea graphics wise what really fits. Like if I put this here to the, to someone who's just messing around, they may say, that looks dope. That looks fresh. Yeah, it's fresh and dope and all that good stuff to you, but I can't read it. So what's the point? Now, if I want to put it here, I have several decisions to make. Okay, if I'm wanting to put some text in the middle here and kind of make it look like it's within the mountains, I might not want to choose a blue like this. So I'm going to come over to my options. I'm going to double click on the color, and I'm going to choose a color that's going to make it pop out if that's what I'm choosing to do. And matter of fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do that for sake of example, because I want to show you guys how to use the layer style, the shadow. Now, here's the thing you guys will find. This right here without a shadow is actually the kind of the latest trend, or it's been a trend for the last couple of years now, where people are kind of going away from using shadows in Photoshop. I guess I would be considered an old school person in Photoshop, even though I'm not, but I still use shadows when need be, because it's all about your graphic being viewable. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're doing a graphic so people can see it and appreciate it. If I can't read it, I can't understand it, what's the point? Unless your goal is to be abstract. Nine times out of 10, your goal isn't to be abstract. You're wanting someone to understand what you're trying to convey with your graphics. So there's certain rules, there's certain things that you have to consider every time you create a graphic. You can't just throw a font on top of something and it be the wrong color, and now the person is not able to read it. So you can use your discretion. Some people are there's a lot of people who avoid shadows altogether. I'm kind of starting to lean towards that more so these last few years, but I'm not afraid to continue to use it when it needs to be used. Okay. So anyway, you got this, right? You throw this on here. Let's go to those effects now. As you can see here in the layers section, I'm going to transition a little bit from type right now to layers. Now layers, remember, this is if I click on this eye here really quickly, if I click on this eye, it's going to remove everything that it's basically going to remove that layer off of what I see. Okay. Now, we started with this white box. Remember that this is the bottom layer. It used to say background. We switched it to layer 0, right? These other layers, when you click on them, you can view them. They're able to be moved. Excuse me. You're able to move them behind the white box. You're able to rearrange the layers by clicking on them and dragging them, right? You might have seen this in other software that copy what Photoshop does. But the whole concept of a layer is simply like a cake. You got the bottom layer of the cake, and then you keep adding layers on top of that. So, for instance, if I have this top layer here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So remember, I'm going to grab my corner of my box. I'm going to hold down Shift, and it's going to let me stretch this up, right? So now if I wanted to say, hey, you know what? I got the good life on top of my nice beach scene, right? But I just want to see the mountains I want to see through the words a little bit. Well, remember, this layer is on top of this layer, so it has opacity, right? Each layer here, every time you're selected on a layer, you have these additional options that you can click. Like you can lock the layer. There's several things you can do to the layer, right? You could put some of the layer styles and filters on it, which we won't have time to get into today. But mainly, what I just want you to do is be able to just make the see, look at that. I was on the wrong layer just then. You notice that just made the second layer get lighter. I actually want to be on the top layer here for good life, and I wanted that to be a little transparent. So now I can see through the text a little bit more and see the background. Now, for the sake of example, I've just shown you that, but really for the graphic, I think it looks better with that being white and it really boldly standing out in front of this mountain view back there, right? Now, just to kind of show you the feature of the shadow, even though I told you I'm moving away from those, you come down here and you have some additional options. You have mainly what I want you to focus on is this right now. And for future trainings, I'll kind of address some of these other things like creating folders where you can put your layers in within different folders for organization purposes. This right here is to click a new layer, to start a new layer from scratch. This is to delete layers. Well, we're going to come here to effects and you'll see a little drop down. I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen, but just look at where my mouse is. I'm going down to the bottom here where it says FX, and it should have a little window that pops up. You'll see a couple of titles. You got drop shadow, you got outer glow. So you click on drop shadow, and it should have a layer style box that comes up. Once again, I'm not sure if you guys can see this on your screen, but on your screen you should see some options to play around with the distance and different things like that. Now, if you notice, when I start playing around with distance, I have a live preview so that I can see, that I can see where the shadow is, I can see how dark it is, and all these things like that. Once again, we're not going to do the shadow, so I'm just going to cancel that. And now, we have this graphic here. So now I have good life in front of this mountain. This might be just something that I just post on Instagram, right? Because I have it in the box size, and I just might want to throw my logo or something on here, right? So I'm gonna leave you with this. I'm gonna add a logo to this, and then we'll go over how to save. Then I try to have some time for you guys to send me chat or text to answer any questions that you might have, and we'll be done because we're coming up on that ending time, right? So remember, very similar to how when it opened up the beach image, right? And I was able to drag that image into here. I want to do the same thing with a logo. So I go into my files. I'm gonna go search for a logo. Cleet the Geek. All right. What you doing? All right, let's see what's going on with this. Look like it's still loading. The computer isn't normally. There we go. All right, so I'm looking for my logo, right? So I'm gonna scroll down, and of course you guys wouldn't know what my files look like, but let me just get to my logos really quick. Any day. I just need something. And you guys can notice I have some PNGs here. We're about to talk about that in a second. As soon as my computer loads. You know what? I think I know which one I want. I'm just going to grab it. Yeah, that'll work. So boom, you see I open this up in a new window. Now, once again, I'm going to grab that. I'm going to drag it over to this original one and place it where I want it to be. Now you can see this is pretty large. I'm going to grab the corner of it, hold down Shift, make it smaller, and probably just place it in the bottom here on top, probably in the bottom here since. Because remember, you always want to pay attention to colors. If it's blue, I'm not going to throw it on blue. It's going to be hard to see. If I want to do that now, well, here's the thing. Design is subjective, so you can do whatever you want to do, to be honest. That might not look that bad to you. It's up to you, but there's just some rules I follow to make sure all my graphics look good. Now, to be honest, I actually don't look too bad there, but for the sake of example, I'm just going to drop this on the bottom here. Boom. So now I have a complete graphic that I could put up on social media. But the biggest thing is, all right, how do I save this thing, right? I want to be able to make sure it uploads correctly. So how do I save it? You see, I got a message here. Let's see what we got. Never mind. All right, so here we go. So I go up to File. I'm gonna save as. Now wait a minute. Let me make sure I'm gonna show you guys this methodology, which is gonna make sure your web graphic is the best it can be. Now, if you are using a version of Photoshop that's older than Photoshop CC, which is Creative Cloud, then when you go to File, you'll see right away it says Save As, and then right under it should say Save for Web. If you're using CC or newer, if you got the latest update, or if you just went and downloaded it today, then you have to come down to Export, and Save for Web is under there. So they moved it there. I don't know. I hope they don't get rid of it, but they moved it there for now. So when you click on that, it's going to open up a little box. It's going to have a preview, a large preview of your graphic. And I'm going to see if I can share this really quick. Hold on a second, guys. I can. Perfect. So boom, here you go. Man, this Google Hangout is not so bad after all. So as you can see a little preview. This is showing you how it's going to look on the web. It's Save for Web, right? So you want to pay attention to a few things. Right here in the corner, this shows you the size, the estimated size of the graphic, how large it's going to be. Now, a lot of you might look at, I'll take Facebook as an example. The cover image on Facebook, a lot of times, for the longest time, I couldn't understand why every time I did these high-res graphics, why it would look pixelated on Facebook. And then I realized this area here, after doing some research, I realized that to effectively upload an image to Photoshop, and Photoshop built-in compressor, which compressing is simply making a file size smaller. So whenever a compressor is implemented, it sometimes takes away the quality in order to make sure that the image fits from a size standpoint. Okay, so what Photoshop does is they take the cover image that you upload, and they make sure that it's under 100 kilobytes, 100K. Okay. Now that's just for the cover images. I don't know what they use for their other things, but from the research I've done, a lot of people have alluded to the fact that Facebook wants it to be 100K or less for cover images. So if you ever found yourself in that situation, I'll probably just answer that question for you. It's because your image is like this one's 400K. Now, you don't have to worry about this for Instagram or Twitter, different things like that. But for that Photoshop cover, that's just a little nugget I wanted to leave with you all. It's because it's over 100K. Now, how do you affect the size of this, right? Like, why are you even on the screen? What's the importance of Save for Web as opposed to just saving it regularly? Well, if you notice, it only has options for web format. So GIF is, of course, you guys, if anyone has any kind of social media, you've seen a GIF before. You've seen a little moving thing, and that's one of my more advanced classes where I get into how to make GIFs. But a lot of times you don't really need to get into that using Photoshop. There's some other programs that makes that easier. But then you notice you got your JPEG, you got your PNG 8, and you got your PNG 24. We'll get into what those means, what those two different types of PNG mean. Now, the first one, we're going to focus on JPEG. So at maximum quality, which is 100%, and this is some presets for the different compression qualities, right? At 100%, this is 428 kilobytes, right? Now, if I bring that down to very high, still high quality, and this preview shows you how it will look online. So it's still pretty good quality. It's still really good quality, actually. At 80%, let's move it down to high. Now we're down to about 124, and it might be slightly pixelated up in this area, but that's not a big deal, right? And then you got your medium. Now, I don't ever go to low. There's no reason to go to low. I don't even want to go to medium. As you can see, medium is really pixelated. I try to go no lower than high if I need to. But once again, when I'm doing graphics for just like a regular Facebook post or a regular Instagram post, then I'm just going to ride out with the largest size, because I mean, when it compresses it, it's still fine. It's not as bad as the Facebook cover issue. Okay, so anyway. That's for JPEG. Let's switch over to PNG. PNG 8 It's just basically, it's just the amount of colors that's going to be used. Now, if I'm not mistaken, someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 8-bit as opposed to 24-bit. And once again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of all of that. The only thing you really need to know is that 8 is equivalent to being a lower quality. 8 is let me just show you. How about that? 24, boom. You can see it uses way more colors. They don't even show the colors on here. But when you get down to 8, it shows just the amount of colors that are being pulled from the graphic. Then you need to worry about what the difference is. 8 is going to give you this amount of kilobytes. 24 is going to be really large, but that's a PNG, a 24-bit PNG is going to be the highest quality you can get for your web graphics. So the difference, what's the difference, right? When do you use one or the other? Well, it just depends. Just keep in mind, the larger each file is, the longer it takes to load. Okay. So we don't want to deal with we don't want to what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to have a whole bunch of large graphics because it's going to take everything a longer time to load, right? So we want to avoid that. Now, a good rule of thumb is to basically go with JPEG for the most part, because JPEG is really for pictures, it's for images. Most of the things you're going to find are JPEG. But the problem with JPEG is it can often find itself being in a situation where it's pixelated a lot quicker than a PNG file is. Okay, and just for the sake of time, I can't spend as much time as I would love to on the difference between them. But one thing that I will say is PNG, your primary use for PNGs is where I started, is when I need a transparent background. Okay, so let's exit out of that. Let me get you guys back into the graphic here. So let's say if I wanted to just have a transparent background, you see that? It's showing all the pixels, boxes. This is equivalent to this being transparent. When you save something in PNG, it's going to stay this way. It's going to just be my logo and this word floating in thin air. And now you can take that and place that over other graphics. So a lot of times you'll see logos in PNG format, because you take that logo and you place it on a website so that no matter what's on the background, it doesn't have a white box around your logo. So if you ever had a graphic or a logo and had a white box around it, you're like, why do I keep getting this white box? It's because it's a JPEG. It's not a PNG. PNG allows you to have the transparent background. Now, if you were to save this same image as a JPEG, what's going to happen is going to, by default, put a white background behind it. So you'll just see my logo here at the bottom with all of this white area. And because the text is white, it's going to cover over that. All right. So those are the two major things that you need to know about JPEG and PNG and the use cases for those. Just to recap, let me just go over everything we covered. Like I said, I know, guys, I know it was choppy, but I wanted to get this out here. I wanted to spend some time just talking about the things that might be helpful for you. Please message me in all of the different ways that you can, so that you can let me know how effective I was. If I need to spend more time on a specific subject, what you're interested in learning. I mean, I know Photoshop, I know Illustrator, I know Final Cut. What else I mess with? I mess with Premiere. Just learned how to mess with Premiere. I'm learning After Effects as we speak. I've done a couple of videos with After Effects. So there's a plethora. I've gotten into photography now. I do videography. So I mean, I'm all about branding. So if you have questions about branding, if you have questions about putting together really good graphics, putting together websites and things like that, I'm your go-to man. I'm Cleet the Geek, the man with the plan. You hear me? So my goal is to share with you guys, all the things that are causing success for me, and and to learn from you. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the guru for everything design. I'm learning every day, and I'm open to feedback on how to be more effective. So That's my little outro speech there. But anyway, just to kind of reiterate what we went over, we talked about how to open up a file. And I just learned how to use this Google Hangout to show you the file window. So let me open that up. I'm going to open up new file window so you can see what I was talking about earlier. 1 second, share. And the good thing about this, you know, the more that I do these, the easier this is going to get from an experience standpoint for all of us. All right. So here we go. This is what I was talking about earlier. When you open up a new file, you know, here's your pixel area. You got your width, height. Once again, 72. Your resolution wants to be 72 for web graphics, 300 for print graphics. If you're doing print, it's CMYK. If it's web, it's RGB. Okay. So I talked about how to open up a file. Let's go back to, hold on a second. Let's go back to Photoshop, okay? Now, we talked about the move tools. We talked about the different sections, and I gave you in the chat, I gave you a little link that kind of describes each tool and what it does, okay? I kind of briefly went over the tools that you needed to know, but spend some time going to that tutorial and familiarizing yourself with the different tools so you can see what's the purpose of them, okay? If you have any questions at the bottom, hit your boy up on this email right here. Okay. Now, we also talked about finding good images on Photoshop. I mean, on Google. So I took you over to Google, and I showed you how to do a search for images, and how to use the search tool and click on large to make sure you have images that are larger than 1,000 pixels. Now, let's just be honest now, or not, no, or rather, let's be open to this idea. It doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes you may actually want your background image to be blurry to get that effect. So I'm not saying that you can't use any images that are less than 1,000 pixels, but that's just a good starting place if you want crispy graphics, all right? If you want high-res graphics, okay? So I showed you how to get that image. I showed you how to save it to your computer and then come and open it up in Photoshop, okay? Like we have it here. It's open on this tab. Then I told you how to get the move tool. Grab that move tool, grab that image, and drag it over to the tab of the document you want it to be on, and letting it go on there, right? So I'm gonna back up from that move, okay? I talked to you about choosing fonts and you know, choosing the right color for your font to make sure it matches the graphic correctly, and placement of your font. We talked about putting a shadow behind it if necessary, and then, you know, we talked about making it transparent, and we got into layers. We talked a little bit about layer styles and you know, how to add shadow, and you know, I didn't get into stroke today, but I will in the future trainings. And then, you know, I got into how to save it. You know, you want to save it as a JPEG a lot of times for space saving purposes. But for things that you really want to be high quality, you know that PNG is the way to go when you want it to be the best quality that it can be. And then you want to, you know, avoid. So you have to kind of, I always encourage you when you're uploading things on a different social media platforms, go on Google and do a search to say, hey, what are the standard requirements for this image? Because you'll find many articles telling you, hey, you know what, this should be 100 kilobytes by this size, and blah, 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 blah. So you want to make sure that you're always doing what the social media platform requires. That way your graphic looks the best. In the future, I'm going to have resources where I can provide you with a template for your standard Facebook cover size and your standard profile picture size and different things like that. You know, you'll look out for tools from me on my website for things like that. But look, guys, I thank you for your time. Like I said, we went about 1 hour and 20 minutes now. If you stayed on the whole time, I appreciate you. Once again, this is a new platform for me. I'm jumping on there. I'm just taking the step to do it. I hope it was helpful. Once again, I encourage you to hit me up with any questions you have. I'm available by email at all times. I got it right there on my phone. So as soon as you hit me up, you know, I could be able to respond, you know, within a timely fashion with the answer, you know, or we'll have a further conversation on what we need to do to help you out. Once again, Look out for more information from me in regards to having a training class where I really, I have a X amount of people that's invited to this class that, that sign up. It's not an invite situation, but it's a situation where you sign up. The price is $250. Now, keep in mind, I took Photoshop class at UCF when I first got there, and I spent, man, my tuition was about $2,000. I can't remember. It was mad expensive, and all they did was gave me a book to learn myself. So I was like, man, I'm not gonna ever find myself in a situation like that. What I'm doing for you guys, I'm offering the ability to allow you to get the training you need for $250 for 5 weeks. Pay $250, you get 5-week training session. And I'm telling you, we go in on it, man. We learn everything you need to know, the ins and outs, the saving format scenarios, the color picking the right graphics, picking the right font, creating your own logo, et cetera, et cetera. We go through all of those different areas over a course of 5 weeks. So within that time, from one class to the next, you get a chance to ask me questions and get clarity on things we went over. I might even have homework, So we really get into it, and you leave after 5 weeks like, yo, what's up? I can do some graphics. Who needs some graphics? Hey, Mom, you need me to do some graphics for you? Because I'm good like that, So anyway, that's my goal. Listen out for some more messages for me on that. And I think that's it, man. I'm gonna wrap it up right there. I mean, I thank you for your time. You guys have been great. Thank you for staying there through the whole thing, sticking through with me, as I got this sound thing figured out. And we'll be doing this a whole lot more moving forward. All right. Peace. Have a blessed day. Talk to you soon.